Good morning, and welcome to this week's Monday Motivation, which is a motivation based all about first jobs. Well, what on earth has first jobs got to do with Monday Motivation? So remember that Monday Motivations were designed specifically for you, not only for your morning, not only for your Monday, but also for your week. So good morning and hello to Alan, who's saying good morning, Jenny. First off the blocks there, morning. So this one was a really fun one to come up with, and let me tell you where this came from. So very recently, I was having a conversation about your first job, your first role. Hey, it's Lisa. Morning, Lisa. I was having this conversation about the first job, and interestingly, a simultaneous conversation was going on with someone else who was a part of an organisation. They want me to come in and do some work for them, and we were talking about our values. And as coaches, a lot of coaches tend to know what values are, but it's almost become a bit of a lingo for people within the industry, and not everybody understands beliefs or values. Now today I'm not going to talk about beliefs, but just in case you're wondering, this is the system of things that you believe to be true in your life that make you or help you construct the life that you see. So if you believe that if you believe that the sky, when it is blue, it's safe for you to go out, for example, whenever you see anything else but a blue sky, you'll have doubts, and things will be created in your world that might not be created in someone else's world. They might decide, I'm going to go out and just take an umbrella for just in case it rains, whereas you might create something within yourself that says, no blue sky, I'm not going out there. So we're not going to talk about beliefs or belief systems today, but we're going to talk about values through the guise of first jobs, because one of the things that I love to do, especially if I'm doing it in a group training setting, is to help people to uncover their own values. It's important to me that I'm not force feeding people with information. And the reason that it's such great fun to uncover your values is it feels really great to do it. So I thought nothing better of starting our Monday this week, just the second week of October, in eliciting our values. So, Ian says, hey up, good morning, Jenny, Alan, Lisa, and anyone else who's joining. Thank you, because I can see you joining and see you watching. And by the way, if you're watching in the background, that's totally fine. But if you'd like to come and say hi, do come and say hi. So let's talk about first jobs and our values and why it's such a feel-good factor. So as if these conversations weren't enough, I saw an article by Oprah actually on LinkedIn, and this was an article from 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago at least, and she was talking about her career and first things that she did and how one career or one job led her on to another. And it got me to thinking about my first job. Now, if anybody asks me what my first job is, I'll say, I remember it well, my paper round, delivering the local paper for £1.25 for the whole paper round. And sometimes sharing it with my sister, and, we would get the newspapers delivered, have to pack them all up into rolls and put them in something that I could go and deliver the newspapers. And I remember that fondly, especially blowing my whole wages on fish and chips for me and my sister afterwards from the shops. So it was a way that I could treat myself and my sister, because she was younger than me and is still younger than me. It was a way that I could treat myself. But when I saw the article from Oprah, I remembered something else. Actually, that wasn't my first job. So I'm going to invite you this morning to do the same thing. So many of you, if you can remember what your first job was, if you just type it in the comments below, whether you're watching this live or on the replay, actually type it in the comments below, because it's such a feel-good factor. We normally remember our first jobs with fondness, but when I was reading the Oprah article, I realised that my first job started before there. So for many people, they'll say their job's babysitting or something else. But my first job actually started when I was at secondary school, and I'd completely forgotten about this until reading this article. So here we go. And it's so funny because this is how values play out in our lives. They're things that we hold dear to ourselves, things that we believe in, and things that infuse our life. Our values very rarely change dramatically. You know, we don't go from one thing to another. They just tend to grow and get stronger as we travel through life. So when I was at school, at secondary school, I remember having a conversation with my head teacher. And this conversation was quite, for me, felt like an awkward conversation. You know, at school, I towed the line. I was really good. I never really got into trouble. I was an average student. You know, I didn't particularly excel, but I wasn't kind of the bottom of the class. So I kind of kept my head down and kept my nose clean. So I was having a particular conversation, which for the purposes of the conversation that we had even all those years back and the people involved, I'll keep the contents of that private. But we were having this conversation and it didn't feel really great to me. So I didn't really say a lot about this particular subject, which of course caused intrigue within my head of year. So, yeah, it was my head of year, not my headmistress, sorry. So, it caused this intrigue and I didn't really want to talk much about it. I'm just having a look at people's first jobs. Paper round, about 6 shillings per week. Good on you, we're paper round people. It's interesting because I'll come on to this with my actual first job, and just like, yeah, the memories of how much we got paid, what we did, and all of those sorts of things, worth kind of noting them down, if not kind of in our head, writing them down somewhere if you journal. Anyway, so here I am having this conversation, which then led to another conversation with somebody else. And after a few weeks of having these kind of regular talks and conversations, this particular person asked me if I would like to join a team that he was putting together. Now, I don't know, how old was I? About 12, 13? So I was still a youngster-ish, and we were talking about these, you know, this opportunity that came up, and this opportunity turned out to be a DJ at the local hospital radio. So I was still at school, I was still young, so we weren't paid for it, which was fine. Probably would have been illegal to try and pay us for it then anyway, because of our ages. But there were 6 of us, and we pulled together something called the Manic Monday Show. And it was only when I was reading Oprah's article that I really remembered, actually, the first job wasn't the paper round job. The first job was a DJ on hospital radio on the Manic Monday Show. Now, here's what you have to understand. I listened to the radio from quite a young age. So I liked the radio, but I didn't think of it, you know, it was a hospital radio, so I didn't think of it as being, oh, well, I'm going to go on the hospital radio and be national news or anything else like that. I just remember being really excited. There were 6 of us, and we all got to do this together. And my memory's fading with, I remember some of my co-presenters on there, one of which was one of my very good friends, so we'd walk home together afterwards. But the Manic Monday Show was broadcast out to everybody in the hospital, and people could phone because every ward had a phone, so including the studio had a phone, but obviously because it's a studio it was kept on silent because you didn't want to be broadcast and have the phone ringing. We had a big window that people could walk past and look through and wave, and we had the big on-air sign so people knew when they could come in and when they couldn't, when they could knock on the door and when they couldn't. And, you know, we played records. Yes, records, not CDs, not even tapes, but records. And we had this big cupboard, like just opposite the turntables and the microphone, where we had all the records in. So we would encourage people to submit requests or to give shout outs. Just making sure I'm not missing any more comments, or to give shout outs and things like that. And what was really quite funny was that my mum was a nurse in the hospital, and her ward was really close to where the studio was, so on her breaks she would come up and wave through the window, and, you know, all my friends would wave back at her, and everyone got to know my mum too. And sometimes we'd even go out on the wards and do interviews. And because we were never worried about doing an interview, we were never nervous about it. We were kind of too young to think about it or to be scared. But remember, we were very indecisive as to which wards we should go to. 9 times out of 10 we would go to the children's wards, because the children would be really excited to see the hospital DJs on the ward, even though we were kids ourselves, you know. And it would cheer them up, and it would like make their stay in hospital a bit better. So why do I share this as a first jobs thing? I share it because for some of you, your first job might not have been the paper round. It might have been the babysitting. It might have been somebody giving you a few shillings or a few pence or maybe a few pounds, you know, for later on, to go and sort of tidy up their gardens, cut the grass, pick up litter. It could have been to help them with their shopping, or, you know, anything else like that. And what I really invite you to do for some motivation this Monday is to really dig deep into the memories that those elicit. Now, clearly, if you're like, oh, my first job was really horrible and I hated it and made me unhappy, then you might not want to delve too deep into the memories of that first job. But here's how it sits with your values. If you didn't, let's start with if you realise, oh, my first job, I really didn't like it. I had to stand out in the snow and I didn't like it at all. Have a look at the elements that you didn't like about that. Don't dwell in it or kind of, you know, ruminate in it, but have a look at the articles or the little elements of that job that you didn't like, because that will give you a clue as to the values that you've already formed. Now, unless you had your first job before the age of 7, that's when you would have formed your values, your opinions on the world, what you hold dear to your heart, and the thing that would make you do a thing or not do a thing. And what's interesting, I found later on in life as a coach who started to kind of learn about these things and what make people tick, is that many people that are unhappy in a particular or specific situation tend to be unhappy because the situation, the environment, the job, the relationship, the diet or whatever actually hits against their values. So if they believe in a specific thing like integrity, and then they go to work for a company who is not an integrity, or as a coach or as a single business owner, you end up getting a piece of work that doesn't feel in integrity, it can turn from feeling really juicy and yummy and pinch myself lucky to actually feeling quite yuck. So first of all, if there was something within your job that you didn't enjoy, just list them down so you can see them. You can always burn the piece of paper or rip it up afterwards. Write them down so you can see them and have a look at maybe or perhaps why you didn't enjoy it, because then it will start to show you things about the values that you hold dear to your heart. In a moment, I'm just going to tell you what you can do with the ones that you love. So Ian says, probably bottling up at my auntie's pub during the school holidays, paid with a bottle of Coke. I hope it's going to let me read the rest of the... Oh, no. I'm trying to do the see more, and it's not letting me. I wonder if I can see it on a different device that I have here. So paid with a bottle of Coke. So that I love that, and I'm really itching to see the rest of that. Followed by... okay, so I can only see up to paid with a bottle of Coke, and then A, and then it, although it says see more, it's not actually letting me see any more, which is really annoying. Okay, Facebook, sort that out, because when people send me things, I like to read the whole thing. So for example then, let's take Ian's as an example. So Ian had his job bottling up in his aunt's pub. So of the memories that he's got there, then perhaps thinking of what some of the things that he loved about it, he might say, oh, I loved it because it was my favourite aunt, or I loved it because of where the pub was, or I loved it because, you know, I got paid with a bottle of Coke. Now think about those three things in isolation, Ian. Was it a mixture of all, that you loved the aunt? Was it, I didn't really think too much about that, it was just that I loved going there after school because I got out of something? Or was it that you loved going there in the school holidays? I think you said, didn't you, during the school holidays, because the pub was in a really busy town and it was vibrant and buzzing? Or was it that you remember the bottle of Coke? Now, I certainly remember the bottles of Coke at my school disco. Glass bottles, the nice swirly pattern on it. And it's funny because I didn't actually drink that much Coca-Cola as a kid. It wasn't something that, it just wasn't something my mum ever bought in the house, and not something we drank in the family. So I remember going to the school disco and a bottle of Coke, you know, with a straw in it, which felt very grown up when you were a kid. You know, this is going back to junior school. 2p for a bottle of Coke. Dating myself here. In fact, 2p was the price of the day of a lot of things. A Mars bar, a bottle of Coke, you know, lots of things. Maybe I got stuck in the 2p part. But my point is, like, you know, is it that you remember how you felt when you had that, you know, particular job? Is it remember what you saw around you? Maybe you liked the fact that the pub was out in the middle of nowhere and there was beautiful rolling green hills and blue skies, and you would you know, get to do that, or you get to meet the people in the pub. All of these actually point to our values, and we can uncover our values. This is too short a time frame for us to do it, but we can get started. Think about the people involved in what you were doing. What was it about them that you liked? Was it a school teacher? Was it a family member? Was it a random stranger? Was it somebody that your, you know, friends and family knew? Was it a certain element to them? So just to give you another example, when I go back to my hospital radio example, I remember the guy that brought us all together. He was a really cool guy, as it turned out, you know. He was a really nice bloke to talk to, and he used to encourage us. Like, if we thought there was something that we didn't know how to do, he would encourage us into doing it and get us to work together as a team to be able to do it. And you know what? I think I realised a lot later on in life that I like doing things by myself, but I actually like the buzz of people. I like doing things as a team. The values underneath all of that, being able, you know, people asking for a particular record and being able to play it to cheer them up so they felt better for themselves, even if it was just for a few minutes of that record, especially in a place where they might have felt worried or scared. You know, they might not have felt so great. They may have felt frightened. They might have needed to be less anxious. And being able to do something which took people out of that anxiety and put a smile on their face was, to me, one of the juiciest things that you could do. And that would point to a value. And I don't see that as being any different to when I work privately with coaching clients, or if I'm giving a workshop or holding an event or something where people perceive that they have an issue or a problem or something that doesn't feel right. And, you know, these particular interventions can serve as like a ray of hope or something that really sparks people going. So I really encourage you to go through the memories, and the minute I finish this Facebook Live, I'll be reading the rest of Ian's comment, because now I'm really, really intrigued. I encourage you, whether you're live now or on the replay, to think back to that first job, the official one or the unofficial one, and the elements of it that would have made you, you know, just really smile on the inside. So thank you so much for watching, and as usual, you know, if you have got any friends that you know might need a bit of Monday motivation, and this isn't a kind of a cheerleading one, this is one that people can indulge in their great memories. You know, it might have been filling up jam jars for their grandma and they got to lick the spoon at the end, or anything else like that. Think about some of those first job memories, and then the next thing to do, once you've thought about the memory of it and written down a couple of the things that you either loved or maybe didn't like so much, start to map them across with what you hold dear or what you value in life to be true, because this will help you to see the values that you've likely built from a very young age and still have to this day. And then once you've got that, if you do journal, write them in a place where you can look at them frequently, because if you can go and have a look at what you're doing regularly on a daily basis and they align with their values, anytime the going gets tough, and this is where the motivation comes in, anytime in life the going gets tough, when you look at what you hold dear to be true and value, you'll either implement something that you can do within that day to keep you aligned and in touch with those values, or you will simply remind yourself of your worth, like literally your value, your worth, why you love the things that you do, what you want to do with it, and be able to move that on. So do share this on your timeline. This isn't necessarily a work related thing, even though the content of it starts off with that, but this is a way in which you can really add some juice to someone else's day, and likely someone that you didn't even know needed to hear it. Let me know your comments below, either if you're watching this as a Facebook Live, then do type it in the comments below. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, and if you didn't know I was on YouTube, then Google Jenny Kovacs on YouTube and you'll find my channel. Then go over and leave a comment maybe under there, and remember to subscribe while you're there too. Thank you so much for watching. Really excited to read your stories of your first jobs and things that you started on early in your career, even if you were a child. And I look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast, which will actually be within the Visibility Vibes Tribe group. Visit the group at the top there and go and see. And it will be another episode of Dear Jenny. So many questions that I have to answer, and Dear Jenny will answer those for you, specifically when it comes to being visible, raising your profile, getting out there, standing out in the world so people can find you easily. Thank you so much for watching. A special shout out to Ian, a special shout out to Lisa, and a special shout out to Alan for giving the comments, and a big wave to those of you who are watching and lurking in the background. Lots of love to you. Bye for now.